All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started, at least with the introduction. And if I see anybody else trying to join us, I'll just go ahead and admit them as we're going. So Brett, you know me, Minerva. Hi, I'm Greg Tannenberger. I work in external relations for the Fowler College of Business. Today I brought out Kevin Cohen from Viasat. I met Kevin my first year actually joining SDSU. So I joined the Career Management Center as their external relations officer. And that was in the fall of 2014. And I met Kevin in the spring of 2015. He was getting ready to graduate and doing his capstone project. And he was working at Viasat as a program manager at the time. And he was also working on the capstone project for Viasat. So that was a cool opportunity that maybe we can touch on a little bit, where Kevin was working for his company and his capstone. His team did a phenomenal job on that capstone project. And since graduating, Kevin has moved up many times within his organization. And he now serves as the managing director of global community internet at Viasat. And I'll let Kevin tell you a little more about that. So I'm going to stop the screen share and I'm going to let Kevin give us a little bit more about what he does at Viasat.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, I mean, basically, I've actually came out of college from University of Michigan and went straight to Viasat here in San Diego. It was a tough sell to move me back to San Diego from the cold Midwest. Ever since I started in engineering at Viasat, and over time, one of the things that I always did was I tried to be involved in as many things as possible at the company, whether it was socializing or working on a bunch of different things, raising my hand whenever there was an opportunity. And what happened was over time, I got a reputation that, hey, call Kevin, he can go figure out what to do. He can get it done. And that led me to being, asked, hey, can you move over from engineering to become a program manager? And at the time I was still, I think 23, 24. So I was pretty darn young. And then from there, I had always wanted to get my MBA. I did my degree, my undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering, but that was always just kind of a stepping stone to me. I always wanted to move on to the business side of things. So program management got me to be able to work on both the finance and spend and managing people aspect, while also integrating some of the engineering degree that I had. And while I was doing that, I started my MBA at San Diego State, which was really fun to drive, an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half with traffic, or sometimes 2 hours when the Chargers used to play.
You're coming from Carlsbad, right?
Yeah, coming from Carlsbad. Yeah, the Chargers would play sometimes on Monday nights and sometimes on Thursday nights. And that was dreadful because it could be, 2.5 hours. I guess good riddance in a little bit, because now we got San Diego State getting their own campus in exchange. So I guess that's good. And then basically, while I was doing my MBA, I continued to move up within the organization I was in. And I had a bunch of direct reports, other program managers, and I was doing business development internationally, using some of the skills I had. But I always had maintained a network within the company, and a network within the MBA program. So I tried to attend the GBSA events. I tried to, stay in contact, if not make friends with people in each of the groups that I was in. And if I could, I would, put my thumb on the scale to try and make sure that I was with people in groups and group projects that I would want to work with and maybe want to keep in contact with and stay in touch with after the program. And that actually bared fruit because from the program, professionally, there's a person that works for me that was in my capstone project. So, that worked out pretty well. And so going along the journey in the MBA, one of the things that I always focused on was taking classes that I thought would be applicable to me, which was, international business, international marketing, as much as it could be, was about consumer and about being international. That was always my goal. And one of the things that I saw was the capstone project was coming, and I said, hey, to myself, why would I go work for another company when I can try and get someone internally to sponsor the project for me, so that I wouldn't have to, I could basically the your own team. It was great. Another time, thumb on the scale. And the other thing is that you get to work on something that you're passionate about, and so that really helped. And that capstone project was on entering Mexico and Brazil with satellite internet. So we did that whole project, presented it to some executives at Viasat, and a few months later, I got a call asking, hey, our satellite's launching. It's going to have coverage over Mexico. We want to see if you're interested in helping, managing. We know you don't have any consumer experience, but yeah, Viasat's good about kind of throwing people in and your feet to the fire, if you will. And so from there, that started the journey of, basically what I'm doing now. It's been 5 years, almost 4.5 years, somewhere in that range, where I basically started from a small project of testing out whether people in rural areas where there's no cellular connectivity and no internet connectivity at all, whether they were willing to pay for internet, how much they were willing to pay for it, how they would be willing to connect, both from on their phone and physically, whether they're willing to walk to a location to use the service or whether they want it in their home. And so we launched that service in 2017 in Mexico, and we're connecting 150,000 people a month in rural areas across about 2,000 communities. And we've actually launched our own retail service that we're going direct to the consumer. We've launched that recently. And in the meantime, we were working on building that business out globally, because our company's got satellites coming that are going to cover the globe with what we call Viasat 3. And so we've actually launched that same service in Brazil, and we're launching in a few more countries coming up now. So one of the fun things about these staying in contact with people and, making sure that you're as social as you can be and connecting with as many people as you can, is that you get to pull from your network when you need someone that has this experience, and you can say, hey, I know this person, and you bring them on, and then that person knows people. So I think the network effect, at least in my career, has been one of the most important things. Is, if people think highly of you, they will remember you. And then if the people they think highly of, they can bring you on board. So I think it's always been important for me to leave a good impression at the company, and to always, give full effort. And with that good impression comes all the accolades later, basically. So I think high level, that's what's happened in my career. And, I've been at Viasat for 12 years now, and I've had basically a different job almost every year since I've been there. And I went from managing a team of 6-7 people on the government side there, when I was a program manager, to now I have a team of maybe 20 people between Brazil, and in Brazil, they're in 4 different cities. In Mexico, they're in a couple different cities, in Miami, San Diego, obviously. And now we're expanding to other countries. So, just growing that team and that global footprint. So there's someone on the team, there's almost someone always awake, which can be fun, and also a lot of Slack messages at different times in the night and whatnot that you can choose whether or not to respond to. So that's just high level background from where I've gone in the company. And
yeah, I really appreciate you walking us through your personal journey, because that's really exactly why we're all here today. I've always been advising students on how to get their next job. That's one of the main topics of conversation that comes up. But there are always students who are like yourself, who weren't necessarily looking to get a new job. They were just looking to break through within their own companies. And I don't think we have the conversation enough on how to make the most of the career with where you're at, how to advance within your own organization. And that's something that you've done particularly well. And I was hoping that you, as you have been doing, would be able to share with some of our students. And so Brad and Minerva, I think you're very fortunate to be a part of the discussion today, because I think there's a lot of great things to learn here. Kevin, you had mentioned that you became known early as somebody who gets things done. Later, you said you focused on concentrating on international business, and you even did a project, for Viasat that focused on Mexico, Brazil, and that's where you ended up now. And so one of the things that I teach our students when I'm sitting down and talking with them is their personal professional branding. How people think about you matters. And I heard you basically saying that, what their perception of you matters. So can you just go a little bit more in the role about how you were able to brand yourself and how that got people's attention to get you to where you want to go?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it starts with how you treat other people. I mean, I'll just give you my own personal journey is that I was a caddy when I was a kid. So I was dealing with rich people, walking their bags around and, trying to be an adult around them and providing as good of an impression as I could. And that would, in turn get me a higher tip or a better tip, right? So I started from that age, but I think it's some people forget that people are always watching. So, the way you act, the way you treat others, and that's always so important to remember. Anytime you drop the ball, if you forget to say anything about the fact that you dropped the ball, people will remember and they'll think that you were just kind of hiding from it. So always owning up to what you're doing and owning up to your deadlines and doing it, not just meeting the deadlines, but with quality work is always important. And I think it also comes down to what you're passionate about as well. I think if you're stuck in a job at a company that you're not happy with the job, but you're happy with the company, the first thing you need to be doing is networking and looking for the right fit for you at the company, because there's always internal postings and places you can go. And at least for me, I was really fortunate that at my company in the first couple of years, I had jobs, or my job allowed me to work across many different business areas, which allowed me to meet a lot of people, which then I met more people. So, when it comes to, if that's not the case in your role, the things that you can do about groups within the organization. Viasat's a big company, so we have a lot more social groups and whatnot. But in smaller organizations, even, I think it's, if you don't branch out and people don't know you, you're just because you work at the company, you're just another resume that they're going to look at in their inbox, rather than when someone externally comes to them and says, "Hey, I've worked with this person, they're great." So the more times you can get out there and get your face and your name remembered, I think it's so important. And I think, Viasat has a good culture of just, there's always things to do at the company. I mean, obviously not right now, but there's always events. There are always things where you could be seen. And, I think that allows you, even from a HR or people and culture perspective, they put you on a list that allows you to then be told, hey, this person's great. If you're looking for someone who can get things done, you should talk to him or her. So I think that's at least how I'll answer that question. But it's really, your personal brand is everything. And if you don't take care of it, then you're never going to get ahead, because people are going to remember, the last time they interacted with you.
Yeah. Definitely, I think that's a very important thing, and to keep in mind, what your value is that you add to an organization. Was that something that was clear to you in the beginning, what you could actually do for the organization to helping you get to where you're going to go, or is that something you had to figure out along the way?
Yeah, I mean, so in the beginning, all I cared about was just getting the job done and doing it well. And, it was a more lower level position. And I really focused on my interactions with others and just understanding the company, understanding the different things that I could be doing there. And then I'd say over time, I started seeing different potential career paths. And then I really honed in on those career paths. And, in the beginning, it was, let's see what program management tracks there are. And how can I get my way in there, and then talk with, I had each step along the way, I had a mentor or someone that brought me up to that next role. And prior to that, they had met me in a different capacity, and they had seen, potential. So they started to work with me and help, move me in. At least the first couple, it was their into the jobs working with them. So that made it easier. And then in the future, it's become more adjacent to them, like helping me move and, grow my personal brand, if you will.
Kevin, so you mentioned networking being an important part of that too, helping you get to where you're going to go. And I'm certain that you really had a keen strategy on networking within Viasat, but were you also networked pretty well outside of Viasat? How did you go about networking that wasn't in the company?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in that side, a lot of my networking, I did a project management certificate at UCSD before I did my MBA at SDSU. But most of my networking really came from, because I was so focused on staying at Viasat, it really was within Viasat and then within the university. I really focused my efforts there. And, I had friends outside of that, some of them successful, which have introduced me to other successful people. But at least and I'm not saying that's the way for everyone. It was just what I did. And that's also, Viasat has 3,000 people in Carlsbad. So you got a lot of people to choose from, and there's quite a lot going on. We have internet in planes. So you've got a whole different division putting internet in planes. You got internet in private jets, on boats, military applications. And then you've got our consumer service with residential service in the US, internationally, and then the business that I now run. So there's just a lot of intersections and a lot of cross-pollination that you can do in working with others and connecting with others.
So a question for you. If you got a message in your email from a student from the University of Oregon and they wanted to connect with you and learn more about what you did at Viasat, would you reply to that student? How would you go about handling a request like that?
That's 1 degree too far for me.
1 degree too far for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how about an alum from SDSU?
Yeah, from SDSU, yes. Yes.
The reason I asked that question is it is something that I teach our students to do, is to go out and reach out to professionals so they can get to know them and learn, about what happens in the organizations. And, not everybody necessarily responds to those. A lot of time, many times it's because of time, like we don't have time to answer everybody that reaches out to us. Why would you reach out or why would you respond to somebody who reached out to you from SDSU? What is the difference for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll take a couple of things there. It's, you share a common culture when with San Diego State, we had similar professors. We know what it's like to go through the San Diego State program, and it's, high quality. So, and on top of that, for me personally, it's local. So that makes it easier. We're not talking about moving someone across the country as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, beyond the cultural side, it's I want to be able to help out fellow alumni. So if I don't have a job for them, I at least can point them in the right direction. And one of the things that I would always encourage is reaching out to recruiters, linking up with them, trying to find people with a shared common background, whether it's your high school or your hometown or home state, trying to find that common link and really focusing on the areas of passion you have. If you want to be doing environmental sciences, or if you want to be, doing oil and gas, whatever it is, I mean, you really want to focus on those industries. And LinkedIn, for example, is a great tool of, find the SDSU alumni that are in this sector and, start shooting off messages. And you may get a hit, because there is nothing like a referral over a cold, hard resume that's just sitting in a recruiter's inbox. Those are the last things to get looked at. And oftentimes the position's already filled before they've even looked at those resumes. And you can be thrown out for a technicality without having any chance to actually speak to anyone. So, and then when you get the chance to speak to someone, there's some sort of common culture behind it as well. So I think that's really important.
I definitely appreciate your candor on what was an unscripted question. So I know you weren't prepared for it, but I wanted to get an honest answer from you. So
I would also say the same for University of Michigan. If someone sent me, I would respond.
Understood. And the University of Michigan is an excellent school. You just touched on a little bit the difference between getting a referral and a recruiter referral, and that you would place more value on that referral from somebody in your network. And one of the things I talk to our students about is, even though we have a job description and that goes out to students, a lot of times we're putting together teams as hiring managers that aren't necessarily represented on that job description, that we're looking for things and aspects and people. For instance, you were the person who could get things done in your organization. And, you know, once people knew that, they wanted you on your team, no matter really what role that probably was going to be. So you hire people, I assume. And, you know, what do you look for when you're hiring people onto your team?
Yeah. You know, there's a couple key things. I mean, my first thing that I'm looking for in the early stages of my teams was, or this was what I was looking for, was people that could go get things done. You know, people that maybe they didn't have the right experience for what we were looking for, but they knew where to go to get the information or to get things moving forward. More recently, now that we're a little more refined in what we're in our actual way we go about entering the market and operating in the market and attracting users and consumers and keeping them, retaining them, is that we look, or what I'm looking for is people with you know, background experience in that particular industry. So I'd say as you get further along in your career, making a jump to another industry, at least from my perspective, I'm hiring a lot more senior roles, and I'm hiring roles that I really want to just slot in and go. So, you know, you want to make sure early on that if you're in your MBA and you're trying to switch career paths, then do it then, because it's going to get harder and harder to switch or start from stage zero, I guess, again. But I really focus on the experience if it's in an adjacent industry. And then, you know, if they've got any contacts that are, you know, connections in common, that also helps. And then if someone's referred them, it's, you know, 10x bonus, because I'm going to actually look at the resume and you know, read it versus combing it. And then I have a much higher likelihood of at least getting them a phone screen. And then once you're phone screening with our talent acquisition team, that's where you have a chance to shine and show that you can you know, you can contribute. But everyone that I bring on board, they have to be self-motivated, go getter, know how to get things done, and then now it's really having that previous experience in the marketplace that we can plug and play. So yeah.
Yeah. So your role is very international in that you're looking at emerging markets for Viasat, trying to find out the optimal areas that one have that need, and then Viasat also has the ability to, you know, move into that market. So you're definitely working with people who have international experience. If somebody had, let's say, 10 years of international experience working for another country, and now they want to come work at a company like Viasat, but never had built up that experience here in the United States, what kind of advice would you give to that person in order to help them show their value to someone like you?
Well, I think that, to me, that's actually a positive. If they're, you know, for
Agreed.
my roles, for my role specifically, you know, I have people that are here in the U.S. from Peru, Guatemala, you know, people that have come from different backgrounds to be here working in the U.S. And then now they're working back out in international markets. But the core team they're working with is here in the U.S. So I think those different experiences, they allow you to provide a different perspective. So it's always really important to share how your different perspective can add value to a team. You know, a lot of times we get caught in the trap of thinking, you know, especially in my business, people get caught in the trap of thinking like an American, like that they just sit on the couch and pop Netflix up. They have no issues with connecting. It starts streaming right away. They're good to go. And you know, being able to show that you have a different bias, you know, everyone's biased, but that your bias may complement well with whatever role you're trying to get. I think that's really important. You know, people understanding different perspectives is huge.
You walked us through pretty well, how you got from where you started at Viasat to where you are now. But if you could just sum up, a few of the things that you think made the biggest difference for you to be able to move to where you are, what would you say, those few things would be? Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them was I speak multiple languages. That was really helpful, and I started that from before college on. So, and then I continued to hone that practice, and I continued to care, and pay attention to what was going on in international markets. So, if you're passionate about where you want to go, following the trends and continue, even if that's not where you are today, understanding what's happening in those markets and everything allows you to speak like you were in the market, even if you weren't. So, not just the language, but then also following, okay, here's where I want to get to. Understanding that is really, really important. And I mean, I think, always doing a good job of staying connected with people. I mean, I've been great at that. So, making sure people don't forget about me. Uh, that's been really helpful. And then, like I said, your own personal brand, if you've got a really positive brand, then people are going to think about you as like, maybe he doesn't have that experience, but I'm sure he can figure it out. I think that's what a lot of what got me further along in my career.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that show up on a job description that might be important to the job, but you could probably teach in a couple of weeks. Whereas there are certainly things that you can't teach somebody, and that's, the people that end up being hired, right? Thank you for that great advice. Just kind of shifting gears a little bit, you had mentioned that you had mentors at Viasat while you were there. Is there any one mentor that particularly helped you out a lot? And what was it that mentor did that was the most value to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say for each step of the way, I've had a different mentor. And, it starts with, and this isn't always something you get to choose, but it starts with having a good boss, right? Or, someone that you can confide in, someone that really respects the work you do. So that's step one is, making sure that if you have a bad boss, a bad manager, you need to get out of there. Maybe not out of the company, but you need to get out from under there, because they're going to be a shadow on your career for as long as you're under them. So I luckily have basically been free of bad bosses. Maybe there's been a few rockiness or things that I disagreed with, but I think I've been lucky in that. But it's also choice. Trying, as you see things coming, you try and avoid that from happening. So the first mentor that I had, he brought me in from engineering to program management. And we complemented each other well, because he understood how to get things done outside of Viasat, but I understood how to get things done inside of Viasat. So, he taught me a lot, and he was, he's since retired from the company. So, he was a much older and had a lot of experience. And he helped impart that with me. And then as I moved up, making a great impression and making your boss look good is really helpful, because then they want to help you out. So that I always made sure that was the case. And then, I'd say really for me, most of the mentors I had were moving up into that position and working with those people directly, or, it was always someone in similar business areas as me that I was able to kind of link up with. And either, not just from a work perspective, but also from a, social perspective, been able to kind of, have the full understanding of them, and learning the ropes from them, and then seeing the good and the bad, and trying not to emulate as much of the bad as possible, and doing as much of the good even better if possible.
Leading by
And
example and
I want to
learning
say,
from others.
yes, I want to say not, I can tell you, many of the executives I work with, they have warts, and they see some of them, they don't see some of them. I've never met a perfect executive. And so it's always, you want to make sure that when you have a mentor, that you don't say, well, he does it, so I can. Like, you always want to take the good stuff, and anything you see, oh, he's always late to meeting, that means I can be late to meeting. Oh, he doesn't respond to the emails, but he follows up with you later. Like, the things that you see that may annoy you, but you say, oh, it's okay, I can start doing that. You have to be really careful, because you can fall into a pit where, I know some executives, they are 10 minutes late to every meeting and everyone sits and waits for them. That's not necessarily a great trait, but other people start following their lead. And now we've got a bunch of people sitting in meetings all the time, waiting 10 minutes to start, which is quite a waste of time. At least with smartphones, there's a little bit less waste time. But when I started at Viasat, there were no smartphones. So you were actually literally sitting there, twiddling your thumbs, waiting for these people to come. So
Great advice, Kevin. Shifting gears a little bit, so we talked about how you moved up in the organization, but I want to talk about the organizational thinking that's involved. So it's very different being who you are now, managing teams across the country, and being a program manager when you first started, which was a very important role, and I'm sure you were super busy. But how did you make that change or that leap, or I guess you took steps to get there? And can you point out what some of the differences are between how you approach your job and your role in those positions?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a lower level position, you're almost narrowly focused on getting the job done and what you have to get done. And you may not know exactly what's going on around the company, and you may not need to know, but you really need to focus on getting your work done and doing a good job at that. And then as you move up, and as I moved up, I should talk about myself, I started working on multiple projects at the same time. And my domain was that, and it was making sure that those were executed as well as possible. And then looking nearby, but adjacent. So my bubble of what I cared about and what I really focused on started growing. Because if you show that you can get really laser focused stuff done well, then you can start getting more things done well. And, things start getting piled more and more onto your plate over time. So, I went from just focusing to these programs to when I was over on that side of Viasat as a program manager, I started getting invited to the meetings with the president of the segment on strategy and whatnot, because he saw value in how I was contributing. So at that point, I started looking across, that whole segment, what's going on, who are the people to work with, making sure I align myself with the A players, and also that means aligning socially. Even if I didn't necessarily thought all of them were like my best friends, I would make sure that I got as close as I could to them. And then once you get to higher level of the company, you really have to think about the company's needs. So when you're worried about your own budgets, you really want to focus on that and try and make sure you can get marshal as much resources to be as successful as possible. But then when you have to balance the company's needs, the stock price, how much you're investing versus other groups, and how you can help other groups, whether there's synergies or offer up people, say, hey, this person is probably a better fit for this role at the company with me, because, you need this more than I do right now. So making that, those trade-offs is really important. But, I went from not even caring what happened on a quarter by quarter basis at the company. I didn't listen in on the earnings calls. I didn't pay attention to, maybe I would read the PR that would come out, any of the press releases and whatnot. But now that's, you have to really live and breathe your company. The higher up you are at it, the more it matters. And then I think what I was saying earlier about paying attention to the industry that you care about, you want to know what happened at Viasat a couple years ago and how that trend might affect us now, or how we made a decision to invest could also signal how we're going to invest in the future. So you start really just kind of your knowledge about an organization needs to grow, and then your focus. You need to make sure that people that work for you are able to focus on the laser focused stuff, so that you can see things at a higher level.
Great explanation. I have plenty more questions that I could ask, but I really want to give our students a chance to speak with you and ask the questions that they want to ask. So I'm going to open the floor to Brad, Andre, and Minerva. Please feel free to unmute yourself. And if you have a question, go ahead and ask it, but also introduce yourself. So Kevin can know a little bit about who you are as you're asking the question. Anybody want to volunteer to ask the first one? I know it can be tough to put yourself in the spotlight, but this is a great opportunity here. You have someone like Kevin who has the experience and can talk to you about how he was able to accomplish it. So, Minerva, did you want to say something?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for putting this together. It's really It's really like a lot of good information. As someone that I just finished my degree this past May.
Congrats.
So just, I guess, just I know. So first of all, I finished my degree in civil engineering, and currently I'm working for the city of San Diego. I'm still looking for a full-time opportunity. So I'm still an intern. So I'm kind of looking like ahead in the future if I want to stay more on the engineering side or going into like upper management. So I guess my question is for you, does an MBA, I mean, how did you choose to do an MBA against doing like project management? And like, what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, I mean, so I did my project management certificate at UCSD before I started my MBA at SDSU. And to me, it was always steps on the career path to get to where I wanted to be. So I never really wanted to be an engineer. I thought, hey, they make a lot of money coming out of college. That's a good thing. And hey, I think 50% of all engineers end up not working as engineers. So those two stats, I really like those ones. And so what I saw was that engineering, you learn how to work in teams, you learn how to problem solve, which then gets you, when you're a project manager or program manager, you have to do the problem solving, you have to work in teams, but you have to understand what the engineers are doing and what it means so that you can be successful. Because if all you're doing is following earn value and schedule and just asking for follow-up and status, you won't be able to actually speak informed. You're just kind of taking, you're a note taker, which is not the greatest position to be in. And so I saw that at the company, the stepping stone ladder to get to running a business really through program management, because you're running your own little business when you're running a program. And I always wanted to run a business. So to me, it was hard to move up to the MBA level, because what I saw was that I could learn a lot of the financial side that I was completely missing for my engineering. Obviously we had all the math, but none of the actual financials to back it. And then just the market, like I mentioned, I focused a lot on international classes like international marketing, international business, which was focusing on how to determine which markets to enter, and a lot of the case studies around that. I looked at it where I wanted to be, and then I said, okay, what am I most passionate about?
I see. I guess for me, I just have to define what I want to do in the future. I guess that's what like my confusion right now. As of now, I know that I want to work for a while in the engineering side. I guess it's just defining what I want to do, and then considering there if I want to do extra, like going back to school, do a master's and do like more specific to engineering, or do an MBA. So I guess it's just defining my goals for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I always, I recommend, hopefully Greg doesn't kill me for this, but you can do both tracks of going straight college to MBA. But I had 5 years of experience or 4 years of experience before I started my MBA. And what was helpful there, at least the way I'd put it, is you take an organizational behavior class. If you've never been in an organization, or your organization was flipping burgers, the amount you're actually going to understand of what's talked about is a little less. So you get something out of it, but you may not get as much out of it. So, just like a master's in engineering or getting an MBA, it's really about, once you've actually done the job for a little bit, it really helps you to determine what you're passionate about. And then you really want to attack it with, go full speed ahead on it.
Kevin will probably be surprised, but I'm going to concur with him 100% on that. I think it's much better for you to get real world experience and start learning a little bit about, how businesses even work, what your roles in them are going to be before you decide to go to an MBA. Because if you get your MBA right away, you don't really know what to do with it. You know, I think, Kevin, it's probably true for you that you knew exactly what you wanted to use your MBA for when you came to get it. And if that's true, you know, that's really the best that you can do with it and the best advice that you can get. And
Got
Minerva,
it.
by the way, feel free to shoot me an email if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one. I'd be happy to talk with you both about your career future and if and when you want to get your MBA as well.
Got it. Thank you, Gregory. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, of
Brett,
course, Minerva.
Andre, do you have any questions you'd like to address with Kevin?
Oh yeah, I actually do. Hi, Kevin. My name is Andre. I'm currently a graduate student at SDSU, and I'm in the information systems program. And my goal is to proceed with my career in operations and supply chain management. So basically, I have two questions. First of all, I joined the Zoom meeting a little later, so I missed like a good chunk of your speech, which I'm sorry about, because the answering the questions was really revealing. Thank you very much for your honesty. And I basically have two questions. First of all, I see that it's been over 12 years since you've been with one company, and what made you actually turn that? I'm pretty sure there was other offers from other companies. What made you turn off those offers from the other companies, stay at one place for over 12 years? And the second question is, do you maintain your project management certificate, or there's no need to right now for you to actually keep it up to date?
Yeah, so answering the first question, when I started at Viasat, it was a very domestic company. It was, you know, we provided products, mainly sold products to within the US, and we had a very small international business. Since that time, we launched satellites that cover other countries. We've launched businesses in Europe and Australia. We connect, you know, 5 million plus people. Well, we were connecting 5 million plus people on airlines a month before the pandemic. And so it was really, I was able to move in so many different roles of the company, and the company has changed so much in the past 12 years, going from a product sales company to a services company, and going from a domestic to international. So if I was in this point now, and Viasat it was 12 years ago at Viasat, I would not still be at Viasat, but I'm there because of the growth of the company. And even I think from revenues, EBITDA, et cetera, I think we're 5 times larger than when I started or so. So it's been a pretty impressive growth there. And there was maybe 1,500 employees at maybe 2,000. Now there's 6,000. So the company's grown as I've grown. So that's made it really fun to work there. You know, not everyone gets that opportunity to work at a growth company that when I came in, it was already 18 years old or so, 19 years old, and now it's 32 years old. So, you know, I got lucky in that regard. But for sure, the growth of the company kept me there, and the growth of my career to the international track was, you know, awesome. And no, I don't maintain the project management certificate. I do have a lot of program managers that work for me, or a few, and operations managers, but I actually never actually got the certificate itself. I went through the courses, but I never did the PMP.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Kevin. And so as you just told, there must be almost a continuous turnaround of the company, because when the company is growing, everything is changing, and this can be quite disturbing. I guess you've been full hands of work all the time.
Yeah, to me that's fun. Change is fun. If we don't embrace change, then we get left behind. So, you know, growth in revenue means growth in people, growth in ability to do new things. I get bored if I'm stuck doing the same thing. So I enjoy change.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Gregory.
Yeah, no problem, Andre.
For me, Kevin, your best sales point at Viasat on why you stayed and why anybody else should stay is having good managers. That's such an important thing wherever you go. Brett,
Definitely.
I think you probably have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Kevin, my name is Brett De La Garza. I'm an MBA graduate student. I graduated last year, spring 2019. I actually got my undergrad degree at San Diego State as well back in 2010. Since then, I've launched a career in communications. So my most recent position is a corporate communications manager at Encore Capital Group. But, you know, I've actually been in a situation where I had a bad manager that you kind of spoke about, and you know, I read the writing on the wall. I, you know, started applying to jobs, but one thing I guess I failed in was kind of the networking, right, and seeing the importance of that. I kind of maybe in my career kind of lucked into positions where I applied online, and you know, I got an interview and I got the jobs. My first job at Cubicle Corporation, I actually did, you know, meet a recruiter face to face at a career fair. But so that kind of launches into my question. You had mentioned one of your strengths is networking and keeping up with your network. So my question is, how do you really go about making sure you're keeping up with that network and your connections, and do you kind of prioritize those at all?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brett. You know, I would say it's one of those things. You know, if you work at even for me, I kind of ignored, for example, LinkedIn for a long time. Like, I wouldn't add people, I wouldn't, you know, post anything, et cetera. And as I moved up to the company, I realized my LinkedIn was, you know, maybe at least I had my job title updated, but a lot of this other stuff was kind of old. And so I think making sure that you're cultivating that, and that when you meet someone that's interesting, or you think you could have something in common with, it's connecting with them right away on LinkedIn, so that you can then, and hopefully with the memory of remembering where you met them. So then when you can call upon them, you don't necessarily need to go out for beers with them on a regular basis, but you can at least, you know, call upon them, be like, hey, we met at this fair one time, you know. And one of the other things that you can do is, I'd say, with your friends, colleagues, et cetera, if they have needs, you're able to say, hey, I know someone looking for a job in this field, you know, they might be good for that. So, you know, providing support to other people as well is a good way to get ahead for yourself, because the favor that you gave them, so it may turn it back around for you as well in the future. But I would say for me, pre-pandemic, I did a lot of lunches, a lot of happy hours and stuff, and I tried to keep up a lot of my contacts, whether it was from the SDSU MBA, or you know, colleagues or people from outside of work that you know, success people outside of work, and just try to maintain that network. I don't know if there was I didn't necessarily prioritize things, you know, but I would definitely say making sure the people you know are going to help you the most, that you're also helping them.
Cool, thank you very much. That's helpful.
Yeah, no problem, Brett.
We still have a few minutes. Anybody have any additional questions that they would like to ask? Okay. Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time today. It means a lot.
You're welcome.
If any of our three here would like to follow up with you with any questions, is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So if that's the case, if you have additional questions that you'd like to ask Kevin, go ahead and reach out to me and I'll connect you with Kevin so that you can ask the additional questions. I know that, you know, in your shoes, Brett, Andre, Minerva, it can be daunting. It can be tough to see, you know, where you want to go. You know, Kevin was fortunate to already be at the company that he wanted to be at the time that he came to see his MBA. Sorry, my 3-year-old came home, so you probably hear her in the background.
Good. Just a little bit.
But you know, having people who you can look to for advice can be really important. For Kevin, he had some great bosses at Viasat. I'll try to be that for you at SDSU, but it is important, as we had talked a little bit about networking, to find other people out there, especially who are in the profession that you want to be in, doing the things that you want to do. I think Kevin had touched on that a little bit, you know, and learning from them. I think that could be some of the best things that you can do. So Kevin, thanks again, and I'll say good night to everybody. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks, guys. Have
Take
a great evening. Bye-bye.